Iran is marking the anniversary of the Islamic Revolution with a series of events, but this year's commemorations come as the regime is facing its biggest challenge since 1979. Protests against the cost of living broke out in late December, which quickly grew into nationwide anti-government demonstrations. The unrest led to a fierce government crackdown in early January, in which thousands of people were killed.
It was the deadliest crackdown since the Islamic Revolution. Protesters, young and old, male and female, were targeted in the most brutal fashion. The vast death toll even acknowledged by Iran's supreme leader, who blamed the protesters themselves.
Those supported by Israel and the US caused massive damage and killed several thousand people.
What started as demonstrations against a cost of living crisis morphed into something much bigger. Across Iran, protesters called for regime change, chanting death to Khamenei. Encouraged in part by Donald Trump on social media, help is on its way, he wrote. Iran's authorities were under pressure and they responded with force, using live ammunition, firing at protesters' heads and torsos. The rights group Harana has confirmed at least 6,000 deaths and many thousands more are being investigated. The violent crackdown appears to have quelled the protests, while opposition groups are divided.
Iranians are relatively unified in seeking the ousting of the Islamic Republic, but not clear on what comes next or who comes next.
And with Trump not coming to the protesters' rescue, the Iranian regime is still standing for now.
For more, I'm joined by Alex Vatanka. He's a senior fellow at the Middle East Institute with a special focus on Iran. Alex, good to see you. Let's start with the current situation in Iran and the fact that the protests have now died down. Do you think the regime might be feeling a little more confident that they've survived this latest crisis now?
Anthony, it's great to be with you. Look, the regime might feel confident that it just survived this latest round. But the big question they should be asking is, when is the next round of protests going to happen? Because frankly, it could happen any moment's time. The regime has no solution to the long list of grievances that young people in Iran in particular have. We're celebrating, or they are celebrating, I should say, the 47th anniversary. That's half a century ago almost. And who did the regime just kill in the thousands and by some accounts tens of thousands? The demographic of 15 to 25-year-olds. That's the problem the regime has. It has nothing to offer in terms of a future for young generation of Iranians. And I should just quickly add, 70% of Iran's population of 90 million were born after this revolution in 79. That's the problem, the regime. So there will be fireworks in Tehran tonight and tomorrow. But in the midst of the fireworks, you will hear the chants of death to the dictator and death to Khamenei, and that's not going to go anywhere.
Aside from the grievances and looking towards a future government and what it might look like, it seems protesters are divided. How do Iranians see their future? What are the main issues on which they differ about what the future looks like?
Look, you got a vast opposition inside the country. They are angry. I think many rank and file inside the regime are angry as well. We're seeing in the last few days, the security forces, the intelligence services are picking up so-called reformists. Anybody who seems to be a bit soft, anybody who's questioning Khamenei is being picked up. And that just gives you a sense of the anger inside the regime. Never mind the population, whom we know for sure is very angry. But even inside the ranks of the regime, you have got a lot of anger. Is it organized? Is it going to defect? Is it going to challenge Khamenei? That remains to be seen. That's certainly something that a lot of people in Washington are hoping for, because that would make life easy for the United States, for the West in general, that the Iranian people rise up and get rid of this tyrannical regime on their own, essentially making life easier for the West. The opposition in diaspora is real, vast amount of energy. It's wealthy, it's educated, it's connected. It has ideas, and yet it's not organized in ways it could be. And that's the problem. But it's early days again. I think those people who are dismissing the opposition in diaspora, saying they're divided, they're not taking into account that we're in a different place now. We've entered a new chapter. And I think the opposition that has historically for sure been extremely disorganized has good reason to get its act together, to speak in one voice with an agenda that actually appeals not just to Iranians that live outside, but increasing to Iranians inside Iran, including some members of the regime who are looking for a way out.
As Washington and Tehran prepare to resume nuclear talks, Trump has said he believes Iran is ready to make a deal. If they reach an agreement, just quickly, Alex, would that put the final nail in the coffin for aspirations of democratic change in Iran?
Oh, I do not believe that for a second. People should remember Iran had a constitutional revolution in 1905-06, over 100 years ago, before many countries in Asia, or in fact, many countries in Europe. This is a fight of Iranian country, society, people, culture for a long time. And frankly, Trump has nothing to do with it. Trump could be a player of sorts on the margins. This is a fight between the Iranian people and a regime that has ignored them for so long and now has to essentially answer to them. But killing them, cracking down on them, containing them is not going to be a long-term solution. The people of Iran, I suspect, will eventually at some point win this battle. It remains to be seen when.
Brilliant, Alex. Middle East expert Alex Vatanka in Washington, D.C. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Anthony.